A millionaire disguised himself as a waiter in his own restaurant and froze when he heard 3 words from a waitress. What he found out next left him stunned. Before we start the story, leave a comment and tell us what city are you watching from, and at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. You look tired. Just 3 simple words, but they were said so naturally that Andrew Hoffman froze for a moment, his coffee cup halfway to his lips. The waitress who said it was staring at him, her brown eyes bright, curious, almost teasing the name tag on her burglary apron, said Harper Wells, and her whole vibe, bold, light, a bit sarcastic, didn't match the tense science atmosphere of the restaurant. Tired, Andrew repeated. Curious. Yeah, she said, resting her notepad on her hip. You've got that look, someone who works too much and sleeps too little, the kind of person who thinks coffee can fix everything. Andrew gave a small smile. Maybe it can, I doubt it, the coffee here's strong, but it's not a miracle worker. She laughed and walked off toward the counter. He watched her go. There was something magnetic about Harper, an energy that didn't fit with the dull mood inside the Magnolia Bistro, while everyone else moved around quietly, as if afraid to make a mistake. She walked with ease and just a touch of rebellion. Andrew glanced around the dining room, old wooden tables, a charming decor that looked a bit neglected. The place had potential, but something was off. He, the new owner, had come in, pretending to be a regular customer, hoping to figure out what wasn't working in the restaurant, and after just a few minutes, the answer started to show. Harper came back with a steaming cup and placed it in front of him. Careful, she said with a playful smile, it's strong enough to wake up the owner of this place. Andrew held back a laugh. I hope so. She walked away, but not for long. A middle-aged man with a large belly and a smug expression appeared from the kitchen. Rick, manager. His voice cut through the room like a blade. Harper, he barked, I told you to clean the back tables 20 minutes ago, or did you forget how to do your job? Harper took a deep breath and turned slowly. I'm cleaning them, Rick. I just stopped to serve a customer. That's what waiters do, remember? Rick marched closer, face red with anger. Don't talk back, Wells. You think you're funny. Everyone here is sick of your little jokes. The dining room went quiet. The other staff pretended to stay busy avoiding eye contact. Andrew watched closely. The manager's tone wasn't firm, it was abusive. He actually seemed to enjoy humiliating people. But Harper didn't back down. She kept her chin up. I'm just trying to do my job with a little humor, she said, since someone around here insists on keeping the place as cheerful as a funeral. Rick snorted and stepped closer. You should learn to shut your mouth and do what you're told, girl. Andrew tightened his grip on the table. He took a deep breath, holding back the urge to speak up. He couldn't, at least not yet. He was here to watch, to understand without revealing who he really was. But what he saw stirred something in him, anger and disbelief. Harper, though, still didn't flinch. Funny thing, Rick, shut up and obey isn't part of my resume, she said with a half smile. A few nearby customers tried to hide their chuckles. Rick turned red with embarrassment. One more smart con, Harper, he snapped, and you'll be serving coffee on the sidewalk. Better than serving you, she replied, turning her back. Rick looked over at Andrew as if expecting support. Sir, I apologize. Some employees don't understand the meaning of respect. I think the service has been great, Andrew replied calmly. In fact, I'd say she's the only one in here actually smiling. Rick swallowed hard. Sure what to say. He turned around and stormed back into the kitchen, muttering to himself. Harper let out a breath and looked back at Andrew. Sorry about that scene. He just loves turning the morning shift into a nightmare. No need to apologize, Andrew said, meeting her eyes. You handled it well. Oh, I practiced daily. If sarcasm were an art form, I'd have a trophy by now. She rested the tray on her hip and gave a half smile. Want more coffee? Only if it comes with another motivational speech. She laughed. Deal. That'll cost you a smile. And he did smile genuinely, maybe for the first time in weeks. As she walked away, Andrew noticed something else. The energy in the restaurant shifted when Harper was around. Even under pressure, she kept things light. Customers seemed to relax. But there was another feeling in the air too, fear. The rest of the staff moved like they were walking on glass. Rick watched them all from the shadows, just waiting to explode at the small Andrew sipped his coffee slowly, thinking the Magnolia Bistro had a soul hidden, stifled, and her name was Harper Wells. The problem was, who was dimming her light? When she came back with the check, he asked, "Have you worked here long enough to know this coffee can't be saved and that Rick was born, yelling?" She said with a laugh. He placed the payment on the table along with a generous tip. Harper glanced at the amount and raised her eyebrows. "Is this for real?" "Consider it a thank you for reminding me there are still people who speak their minds." She smiled, amused, "saying what you think is the only thing keeping us sane around here, and the job, oh, that's just a detail." She winked. "I lose one a week, but I get great stories out of it." Andrew laughed out loud. Was impossible not to like her. As he stood up to leave, she walked him to the door. "Come back any time, mysterious stranger." "I just might." He looked at the restaurants, then at her. "I think I'll be back sooner than you expect." Outside, the morning breeze brought him back to reality. He walked to his car and before getting in, glanced once more at the restaurant. Inside, Harper was smiling at another customer, trying to hide her exhaustion, while Rick watched everything with that controlling look. Andrew took a deep breath. He already knew what he needed to do if he wanted to understand the Magnolia Bistro. Fix it. He'd have to see it from the inside. Live what its staff lived. And that's when Andrew Hoffman made the decision that would completely change the course of his life, and Harper Wells's in the coming days. No one would see the billionaire, and without realizing it in making that choice, he was about to discover something much stronger than any coffee. The next morning, Andrew sat in his private office, the panoramic view of Charleston, stretching beyond the glass windows. He turned his leather chair and picked up the phone. "David, I need a favor, a very specific one." On the other end of the line, his personal assistant, David Martinez, replied with his usual professionalism, "Of course, Mr. Hoffman. What do you need?" "I want you to get me a job at the Magnolia Bistro. But no one can know who I am." No one. There was a pause. "Sir, are you saying you want to work as a waiter?" "Exactly. Use a fake name, Jack Price. Tell the manager I'm unemployed and looking for a chance 1 full month." "David, I need to understand what's going on from the inside." I see. David hesitated. "May I ask why?" Andrew looked out the window, thinking of Harper's brown eyes and Rick Ross' controlling ways. "Because numbers and reports don't tell the whole story. I want to see the truth." "Consider it done tomorrow. Mr. Jack Price will officially be on staff." Andrew hung up and smiled for the first time in the years. He felt a strange mix of nerves and excitement. The next day Andrew parked 3 blocks from the restaurant, not in his luxury convertible, but in a plain, modest sedan David had arranged. He wore faded jeans, a simple white shirt, and worn-out sneakers, nothing that would draw attention. He took a deep breath and walked to the back entrance of the Magnolia Bistro, where a small sign read "Employees Only." He was about to push the door open when he heard a familiar voice behind him. "Hey, wait a sec." Andrew turned around and saw Harper Wells, a backpack over her shoulder and a coffee cup in hand. She looked at him with that curious, playful expression. "You came in this week and ordered coffee, didn't you? I remember you." She tilted her head. "And now what are you doing back here near the employee door?" Andrew swallowed hard. He hadn't expected to run into her so soon. "Oh, I got a job here. I'm the new waiter." Harper's eyes widened and she burst out laughing. "You a waiter here?" "Yeah, is that a problem?" No, she shook her head, still laughing. "It's just that, well, good luck, you're going to need it." She walked past him and pushed the door open. Motioning for him to follow, Andrew stepped in behind her, trying to hide how nervous he felt. The employee break room was small and cramped, with rusted metal lockers and the smell of old coffee in the air. 3 other people were inside, 2 young guys talking quietly and a middle school-aged woman adjusting her apron. Everyone, "This is Harper," paused and looked at him. "Sorry, what was your name again?" Jack Price." "This is Jack, new waiter," Harper said with a teasing smile. "Try not to laugh too hard when he drops his first tray." The guys gave a slight smile but didn't say anything. The woman just nodded and walked out. Andrew grabbed the apron hanging from his new locker and awkwardly put it on. Harper stood nearby, leaning against the wall, sipping her coffee. "First time waiting tables?" she asked. "Is it that obvious you put your apron on backwards?" Andrew looked down and realized the mistake. his cheeks flushed. Shoot. Harper laughed so hard she nearly spilled the coffee. This is going to be fun. The first hour was a disaster. Andrew had no idea how to balance a tray when he tried carrying 3 plates at once. He almost dropped everything on a customer. Harper showed up out of nowhere, grabbed the tray with one hand, and Truey the plates with the other. Easy there, cowboy, she said with a smile. Hold it from the bottom, not the edge. And walk slow. This isn't a sprint. Thanks, Andrew mumbled, embarrassed. You're welcome. But it's going to cost you a dessert at the end of the shift. He smiled despite himself. Throughout the day, Harper gave him all kinds of tips. She showed him how to organize orders, how to talk to the kitchen, how to smile at customers even when they were rude. She made everything seem easy, turning every one of his mistakes into a joke. You're holding the tray like it's about to explode, she said, laughing. Relax. It's not going to bite. Easy for you to say. Of course it is. I'm a pro. You're a work in progress. The other staff watched from a distance. But not many got close. Andrew noticed they all acted carefully, like they were afraid to stand out or mess up, and then Rick showed up the next morning. Andrew was setting up tables when he heard the manager's loud, irritated voice. Jack, why are you standing there like a statue? Move it. This isn't a museum. Andrew turned. Rick stood with arms crossed, face red, clearly enjoying the sound of his own yelling. Sorry, I was just arranging the arranging. Rick took a step closer. You think customers pay to watch you arrange? They pay to be served. Move it. Andrew clenched his fists but stayed calm. Yes, sir. Rick grunted and walked off, but came back several times that shift to pick apart every little thing. Andrew could feel the other employees watching. A mix of pity and relief that it wasn't them getting yelled at. Harper, however, didn't stay quiet when Rick yelled at Andrew for the 3rd time that morning. She stepped in beside him, holding a tray. Rick. Take it easy. His new, everyone makes mistakes at first. Rick turned to her face, full of anger. Oh right, the defender of the week, you think you run this place. Harper, no, I just think you could try not turning the whole place into a battlefield. Watch your mouth, girl, or you'll end up like the newbie out on the street. Harper shrugged. Better out on the street than stuck here listening to you yell all day. Rick turned bright red, but didn't say anything. He just stormed off. Andrew looked at Harper. Surprised you didn't have to do that. Of course I did, she said with a smile. Someone's got to keep this place, at least a little human. He felt something stir in his chest, gratitude maybe. Where admiration between the mess-ups and the laughter. The day flew by. Every time Andrew got something wrong, Harper was there either to help or to laugh. You're the most elegant waiter I've ever seen, she teased after he dropped a spoon and bent down in an overly formal way to pick it up. Elegant? Yeah, like a butler in distress. Andrew laughed. I'll take that as a compliment. It wasn't meant to be. The next day, Andrew was carrying a tray to the kitchen when he heard shouting. Rick was at the back of the hallway, pointing a finger at one of the cooks, a young woman who was clearly pregnant. You're too slow, he yelled. If you can't keep up, go home and stay there with your belly. Her eyes were filled with tears, but she said nothing. Andrew stopped in his tracks, feeling anger rise up. He gripped the tray tightly, taking a deep breath to stay in control. Rick kept going. This isn't a place for the weak. Either do your job right or get lost. Andrew took a step forward, then stopped. He couldn't step in. Not yet. If he revealed who he really was now, he'd lose the chance to see what was really going on. But silently he made a promise. I'm going to change all of this. I swear. He turned and walked back to the dining room. But the scene stayed burned in his memory, and Harper, watching from a distance, noticed something different in Jack Price's eyes, something she couldn't quite explain. But it made her feel that this man was far more than he seemed. Days at the Magnolia Bistro began to take on a rhythm for Andrew. Each shift was a mix of chaos, learning, and quiet observation. He made mental notes of everything: which staff worked in fear, which once pretended to be busy to avoid Rick, which customers complained about cold food. But what caught his attention the most was Harper. She had a unique way of turning tense moments into lighter ones. When Andrew dropped an empty plate for the 3rd time that week, she showed up with a broom and said, "Congratulations, Jack. You just won the award for loudest waiter of the month." "There's an award for that?" he asked, picking up the pieces. No, but I just made one up for you. Want me to order a plaque? Andrew laughed, shaking his head. I think I'll politely decline. That's too bad, it would have looked great. Near locker, she walked away smiling. And Andrew realized that even tired, Harper never lost her good humor. It was like she used comedy as a shield against the weight of the place. During a coffee break, they sat together in the small back patio behind the restaurant. Harper was casually scrolling through her phone while Andrew watched the street. Can I ask you something? He said, breaking the silence. That depends. If it's about how to stop dropping plates, I charge a consulting fee. He smiled. It's not that. I just wondered, why do you work here? I mean, you seem like you're capable of so much more than putting up with Rick yelling all day. Harper looked up, surprised by the question. She stayed quiet for a moment, as if deciding how much to say. Talent doesn't pay the bills, she finally said with a half smile. And a job's a job, at least I get decent tips here. But do you like what you do? I like serving people. I like seeing customers leave happy. She paused. But what I really wanted was to be a chef. Andrew sat up straighter, intrigued. Really? Yes, since I was a kid, I loved cooking. My grandmother taught me everything. She used to say good food isn't just about taste, it's about making people feel at home. Harper smiled, but there was sadness in her eyes. I always dreamed of opening my own place, just a cozy little restaurant, nothing fancy, just honest. So why didn't you try? Harper shrugged. Culinary school is expensive, and when you grow up without much money, dreams tend to take a backseat. You take whatever job you can find and move on. Andrew felt a tightness in his chest. This woman had so much potential, so much passion, and yet she was stuck in a place that didn't value her. But do you still cook? He asked. Sometimes at home, I make my grandma's recipes, try out new ones. She laughed once. I tried making a soufflé and a collapse like a building being demolished. It was hilarious. I bet it still tasted good. It was awful. Harper laughed, but I ate it anyway. Wasting food is a sin. Andrew smiled, admiring her spirit. Even with everything she'd been through, Harper hadn't lost her joy. She talked about her dreams with lightness, not bitterness. You're amazing. You know that, he said without thinking. Harper blinked, surprised me. Why? Because you keep smiling, even when things around you are tough. That's rare. She looked away a little shy. Oh, I just pretend. Well, deep down I'm a mess. I don't believe that you should. Unlike one of those dishes that looks nice on the outside but is totally burnt on the inside. Andrew laughed. You have a food analogy for everything, don't you? It's my superpower. They went back to work, but Andrew couldn't stop thinking about that conversation. Harper had so much untapped talent. A dream locked away, all because she never got a real chance. He wanted to help, but he knew he couldn't reveal who he really was. Not yet. The next morning the restaurant was packed. A big group of tourists filled 3 tables in the center, and Harper was rushing around trying to take care of everyone. Andrew helped where he could, but he was still slow. Then Rick showed up. He came out of the kitchen looking furious and headed straight for Harper, who was taking an order. Harper, he shouted, right in the middle of the dining room. How many times do I have to tell you to check the orders before sending them in? Harper turned, confused. I did check them, Rick. All the orders are correct. They're not. He waved a slip of table 7, asked for fries, and you wrote mashed potatoes. That's what they asked for. Harper stayed calm. I repeated the order back to them to be sure. So you're calling me a liar? No, I'm just saying that you're incompetent. Rick raised his voice even more, and the whole restaurant went quiet. You always have been. I don't even know why I keep you around. Harper took a deep breath, her face turning red. Andrew, standing on the other side of the room, felt anger rising. He sat down his tray and took a step forward, but then he remembered he couldn't. Not yet. Rick kept going relentlessly. If you can't even take an order properly, maybe you should find another job, one where being funny is enough. Harper gripped the order pad so tightly her fingers turned white, but she didn't say a word. She just turned and walked into the kitchen. Andrew stood frozen, shaking with anger. He watched Rick walk back to his office with a smug look on his face. Then quietly Andrew pulled a small notebook from his pocket and wrote Rick Thompson, toxic manager, public humiliation, immediate termination. He'd been doing this for days now, taking notes, names, behavior patterns. who was creating problems, who deserved to stay, and who needed to go. But Harper deserved much more than just to stay. At the end of the shift, Andrew looked for Harper, but she had already left. He grabbed his things and headed to the locker room to get his coat. That's when he heard a frustrated sigh. Harper was standing in front of her locker, holding a sheet of paper. Her face had gone pale. "You okay?" Andrew asked, stepping closer. She looked up and he saw the tears gathering in her eyes. "It's a warning," she said. Showing him the paper, "Rick put it in my locker, says I've been underperforming, and if I make one more mistake I'm fired." Andrew took the paper and read it. It was cold, formal, and completely unfair. "This is ridiculous. You're the best employee here. Doesn't matter." Harper shook her head and stuffed the paper back into her locker. "Rick wants me out. He always has. I don't know if it's worth fighting anymore. Don't give up." Andrew gently took her arm. "Please." Harper looked at him, confused. "Why do you care so much?" He hesitated. He wanted to tell her the truth, that he was the owner, that he could fire Rick on the spot, that he could give her the credit she truly deserved, but he couldn't, not yet. "Because you don't deserve to be treated this way," he said simply. She gave a small, sad smile. "Thanks, Jack. But sometimes I just wish things were different." She picked up her bag and left, leaving Andrew alone in the locker room. He looked at her locker, at the fake warning letter, and felt his resolve solidify. Rick had crossed a line, and Andrew Hoffman was about to draw a new one. That night, Andrew couldn't stop thinking about Harper, about that unfair letter, the way she walked out of the restaurant looking so defeated, the helpless feeling of not being able to tell her who he really was. The next morning he arrived at Magnolia Bistro, determined to do something, anything. Harper was already there, tying on her apron with stiff, automatic movements. Her usual smile was gone, replaced by a tired expression. "Good morning," Andrew said, walking up to her. "Morning, Jack," she replied, not looking up. "You doing okay?" "Wonderful. I woke up, I'm breathing, I'm alive. Productive day." He smiled at the sarcastic reply but knew she was just hiding how she really felt. The shift was long and tense. Harper moved on autopilot, avoiding conversation. Rick prowled around the restaurant like a vulture, watching for any slip-up. When the shift finally ended, Andrew waited over Harper by the lockers. She walked in with her bag over her shoulder, ready to leave. "Harper, wait," he called. She turned. "What is it?" "Want to grab a coffee? I mean, real coffee, not that watered-down stuff they serve here." Harper raised an eyebrow. "Are you asking me out?" "I'm asking you not to go home looking like someone just kicked your puppy," he said, smiling. "Come on, my treat." She paused, then sighed. "Fine, but only because you said treat, and now I want to see if you actually have money." They walked to a small cafe 2 blocks from the restaurant. The place was cozy with wooden tables and the rich smell of fresh coffee in the air. Harper ordered a cappuccino with extra chocolate, and Andrew got a plain black coffee. "So," Harper said, stirring the foam on her drink, "what's your deal?" "My what?" "Your story. You show up out of nowhere, start waiting tables. You're too polite, never complain." She tilted her head, studying him. "You're way too mysterious to be just a waiter." Andrew nearly choked on his coffee. "Mysterious me? Totally. Like you don't seem like someone who needs to work at Magnolia. You've got this, I don't know, different vibe." "Different how?" "Like someone who used to live a more comfortable life." Harper narrowed her eyes. "Are you running from something?" Andrew laughed nervously. "No, nothing like that. I just needed a job and Magnolia was hiring." She didn't sound convinced, but let it go. "All right, Mr. Mystery, I'll believe you for now. Thanks for the vote of confidence." They both laughed and the tension finally started to fade. Harper took a sip of her cappuccino and closed her eyes, enjoying it now. "This is real coffee," she said. "If Magnolia served something like this, maybe customers wouldn't complain so much." "Have you ever thought about suggesting that to Rick?" Harper let out a bitter laugh. "Oh sure, because Rick is so open to suggestions. Last time someone spoke up, he said I don't pay employees to think." Andrew shook his head, stunned. "He really said that word for word?" Harper paused. "Anyway, enough about work. This was supposed to be a peaceful moment." "I agree." Andrew leaned back in his chair. "So tell me, if you could do anything right now, no worries about money or responsibilities, what would it be?" Harper thought for a moment, her gaze drifting. I'd open my own restaurant. Really, what would it be like? Small, cozy with real homemade food. None of those fancy menus or dishes nobody can pronounce. She smiled, a spark in her eyes, and the decor would be fun. Chilly signs on the walls, napkins with jokes, a place where people could relax and feel at home. Andrew listened, fascinated. Harper's passion was contagious. And what would it be called? He asked. Haven't decided yet. Maybe Harper's Place or something like that. Simple, straight to the point. She laughed. Or maybe Grandma's Kitchen to honor my grandmother. She taught me everything. I'd eat there every day. You're just saying that because I gave you a discount on the coffee. No, I'm saying it because you care about what you do. That's rare. Harper looked away a little shy at the compliment. I don't know, it's just a chilly dream. It's not chilly, Andrew said firmly. And you should go after it. With what money, Jack? She sighed. Dreams are expensive. I can barely pay rent. He wanted to say, he could help her. That he could fund the entire restaurant if she wanted. But he couldn't, not yet. Then start small. He suggested a food truck maybe, or start a recipe blog, something to keep the dream alive. Harper smiled. You're really motivational. You know that, like one of those follow your dreams posters they sell at gift shops. I'll take that as a compliment. It wasn't meant to be. They laughed together, and Andrew felt something warm in his chest being around. Harper was easy, natural. She had a way of making everything lighter. Seriously, though, Jack, she said, her tone softening. Thanks for bringing me here. For listening. I was thinking about quitting today and now I think I'll stick around a bit longer. She shrugged. After all, someone's got to teach you not to drop dishes. True, I'd be lost without you. Harper rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. They stayed at the cafe for another hour, talking about everything and nothing. Andrew learned that Harper loved old movies, that she had a cat named Biscuit, and that her favorite dessert was key lime pie. When they finally stood up to leave, Harper seemed lighter, more like the person he'd met on that very first day. Thanks again, she said as they walked down the street. I needed this anytime. Just say the word. She stopped at a bus stop and turned to him. You're strange, Jack Price. But the good kind of strange. I'll take that as a compliment this time it is. Andrew smiled and waved as her bus approached. Harper stepped on, but just before the doors closed she called out, Hey Jack, what, don't give up on me too, okay? He felt a tightness in his chest. Never. The bus drove off and Andrew stood there watching until it disappeared around the corner. The next day, Harper arrived at the restaurant with a different energy. She seemed more determined, less weighed down. Andrew noticed it right away. Good morning, he said. You seem different. I slept well. She answered, smiling. And I made some big decisions. What kind of decisions? Before she could answer, her phone rang. Harper glanced at the screen and the smile vanished. Excuse me, she said, stepping away. Andrew watched her answer the call. Her face shifted quickly. Worry, fear, sadness. When she hung up, Harper was pale. Everything okay? Andrew asked, approaching her. It's my mom, she said, voice trembling. She had a health issue. She needs urgent treatment. Is she all right? She is. But Harper rubbed her face. The treatment is expensive, really expensive, and I don't have enough money. Andrew took a step closer. Let me help. No, Jack. She shook her head. You've already done enough. This is something I have to handle, but I'll figure it out. Harper took a deep breath. The determination back in her eyes. I always do. She put her phone away and went back to work, but Andrew could see it, the tension in every move she made. At the end of the shift, Harper disappeared quickly. Andrew only found out later through another employee that she had signed up for a cooking contest with a cash prize, and, more importantly, that she didn't want anyone to know. The next day, Andrew arrived early at the Magnolia Bistro. The restaurant was still closed. But he had an extra key David had managed to get to help keep his cover. He wanted to check on a few things in the kitchen before the day started. That's when he heard a noise coming from the back. Curious, he walked quietly toward the kitchen and found Harper there, wearing a big apron. Ingredients spread across the counter. She was so focused she didn't even notice him starting early today. Andrew asked. Harper jumped, nearly knocking over a bowl. Wow, you scared me. Sorry, he smiled. Walking closer. What are you doing? Harper hesitated, biting her lip. Just practicing a few recipes for the contest. Her eyes went wide. How do you know about the contest? I overheard some of the staff talking yesterday. Andrew lied, didn't realize it was a secret. It's just Harper sighed. I don't want Rick to find out. If he knows, he'll find a way to sabotage me. Makes sense. Andrew looked at the ingredients. Can I help you? Harper laughed. Jack, you can barely carry a tray. Imagine working a stove. Hey, I can learn. Besides, you'll need someone to taste the food. Right, Harper thought for a moment, then shrugged. All right, but if you burn my pan, you're buying me a new one. Deal. Harper started explaining the recipe, a classic southern stew with chicken, vegetables, and special spices. Andrew paid attention, but once he started helping, chaos followed. Jack, I said 2 cups of broth, not 2 spoonfuls, Harper said, trying not to laugh. Oh, really? Andrew looked at the pot. I thought it looked like too little because it is too little. She grabbed his measuring cup. Look, let me show you again. This is a cup. You fill it up to here. See, got it. 5 minutes later, Andrew dumped an entire packet of pepper into the pot. Jack, Harper shouted, trying to save the stew. This isn't a spicy food competition. Sorry, the package slipped. Harper laughed so hard she had to hold on to the counter. You're a danger in the kitchen. I told you I wasn't good at this. Not good is putting it mildly. She wiped away a tear from laughing. You're a total disaster. But even with all the mistakes, Andrew didn't give up. He kept helping, following Harper's instructions, and little by little started to get the hang of it. Or at least tried. When the first dish was finally ready, after 3 attempts, Harper tasted it carefully. Well, Andrew asked, anxious. It's not bad, she said, surprised. Actually, it's pretty good. Considering you almost destroyed my kitchen, that's a miracle. See, I told you I could help you. Helped create chaos. That doesn't count. They laughed together, and Andrew realized how easy it was to be around her, even in the simplest moments. Harper had a way of making everything feel special. In the days that followed, the routine repeated. Harper arrived early to practice, and Andrew showed up to help, which usually meant causing a mess and making her laugh. One morning he dropped an entire pot of sauce on the floor. Jack, Harper yelled, still laughing. How do you manage to be so clumsy? It's a natural talent, he said, grabbing a rag to clean up. A talent I've never seen before, she said, kneeling down to help. Honestly, you're like a hurricane in human form. Thank you. That wasn't a compliment, but her smile said otherwise. Another day, Andrew mixed up sugar with salt and nearly ruined a dessert. Taste this, Harper said, handing him a spoon. He tried it and made a face. This is interesting. Interesting. Harper tried it too and immediately spat it out. This is awful. What did you put in it? Sugar. That's salt. Jack. Oh, he looked at the container. They looked the same. Harper shook her head but was laughing. You're impossible, but admit you're having fun. I am, she said, smiling. You're like my favorite disaster. Andrew felt something warm in his chest at those words. They stood there in the middle of the messy kitchen, looking at each other. The laughter faded, replaced by something else, something deeper. Harper stepped forward without even realizing it. Jack, he didn't think, he just leaned in and kissed her. It was a soft kiss, almost hesitant, as if he were asking permission, and Harper answered, wrapping her arms around his neck and pulling him closer. The world around them disappeared. There was no kitchen anymore, no recipes, nothing but the two of them. When they finally pulled apart, they were both out of breath. That was, Harper began, unexpected. Andrew finished. I was going to say nice, but unexpected works too. She smiled, her cheeks flushed. Andrew chuckled, touching his forehead to hers. I've wanted to do that for days, really, and you didn't because I was too busy dropping things. Harper burst out laughing, resting her head on his shoulder. You're ridiculous, but you like me. Unfortunately, yes. They stood like that for a moment, wrapped in each other's arms in the middle of the kitchen, until Harper's timer went off, reminding them the restaurant would open soon. We need to clean this up before someone walks in, she said, glancing around at the mess. Right, we don't want Rick to see this. Together they started tidying up, working in sync. There was a new lightness between them, a connection that hadn't been there before. Andrew knew he was heading into dangerous territory with every day that passed. Keeping the truth hidden got harder. But when he looked at Harper, when he saw her smile, it all felt worth it. The next morning, Andrew was setting the tables when Rick's voice echoed from the kitchen. "Piper in my office now." Andrew stopped what he was doing and quietly stepped closer, worried through the cracked door. He could hear the conversation. "So it's true," Rick's voice was filled with anger. "You're entering some cooking competition." Yes," Harper answered, her voice steady. "But it doesn't interfere with my job here." "Doesn't interfere?" Rick let out a bitter laugh. "You've been using my restaurant's ingredients to practice. That's theft. Wells, I haven't stolen anything. I bought the ingredients with my own money." "Liar, I saw the inventory were missing. Meat, spices. Everything you're using for your little contest." Andrew clenched his fists. That wasn't true. He'd seen Harper buy her own ingredients at the store. "That's not true," Harper said, staying calm. "And you know it." "What I know," Rick stepped closer to her, "is that you're stealing from me. And if you don't drop out of that contest, I'll report you. I can make sure you lose your job and never work in another restaurant in Charleston again." A tense silence followed. "You can't do that," Harper said, though there was fear in her voice. "Oh, I can, and I will, unless you quit right now." Andrew felt rage boiling inside, stepped forward, ready to walk into the office and reveal everything. But he stopped. If he stepped in now, he'd lose the chance to collect proof against Rick and Harper. Harper would find out he'd been lying all along. He stepped back, heavy, and watched as Harper walked out of the office with tears welling in her eyes. She passed him without saying a word, heading straight to the staff room. Andrew stood there, frozen, knowing he had to do something. But what? Andrew found Harper in the staff room, sitting on the bench with her head in her hands. He walked over slowly, unsure what to say. "Harper." She looked up, her eyes were red. But she wasn't crying, she looked more angry than sad. "You heard?" she asked. "I did." Andrew sat next to her. "And it's all lies, everything he said." "I know that, and you know that," Harper sighed. "But Rick doesn't care about the truth, he just wants me out of here." "Let me help," Andrew said, gently touching her arm. "I can talk to him, or, I don't know, we could gather proof that you bought everything yourself." Harper shook her head. "It won't help Jack. Rick always finds a way to twist things to his advantage. That's how he works." "Then let's go over his head. Let's talk to the owner." Harper let out a bitter laugh. "Nobody knows who the owner is. He never shows up. He's like a ghost, a rich ghost who buys restaurants and lets go fall apart." Andrew felt the weight of her words. That's exactly how Harper saw him, as an absent ghost, and she wasn't wrong. "There has to be something I can do," he insisted. Harper turned to face him. "You know what? I really need Jack. I don't need someone trying to be a hero and fix everything. I need honesty. I need people to be who they say they are, and I need someone on my side without a hidden agenda." Her words hit Andrew like a punch to the gut. Honesty, the one thing he wasn't giving her. Harper went on. "I've dealt with fake people my whole life, people who make promises and don't keep them, people who pretend to be something they're not." She paused, taking a deep breath. "And I'm tired of it." Andrew opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. What could he possibly say? That he was exactly the kind of person she just described, that he was hiding who he really was. "Sorry," Harper said, running her hands over her face. "I shouldn't take it out on you. None of this is your fault." "No, you're right," Andrew said, swallowing hard. "Honesty matters." Harper gave a faint smile. "See? That's why I like you, get it?" But he didn't. In fact, he was doing the exact opposite of what she wanted. Harper stood up, adjusting her apron. "While no point in sitting around feeling sorry for myself. I've got tables to serve and bills to pay. Life doesn't stop just because the boss is a jerk." "Are you still going ahead with the contest?" Andrew asked. "I am," she replied, determined. "Rick can threaten me all he wants, but I need that money. I'll be careful. I'll keep every receipt, and if he tries to frame me, I'll prove he's lying." "And what if it doesn't work?" Harper shrugged. "Then I'll look for another job. Wouldn't be the first time." Andrew admired her courage. But he also felt a growing frustration. Harper was fighting alone against an unfair system, and he had the power to change everything with just one phone call. But he couldn't, not yet, not without losing her trust. The rest of the day dragged on. Andrew watched Harper work, noticing how she kept smiling at customers even while carrying so much weight on her shoulders. She laughed. made jokes, served with kindness, but he saw the tension behind every move. Rick, on the other hand, strolled through the restaurant with a satisfied grin. He knew Harper was in a vulnerable spot, and he was enjoying every second of it. When the shift finally ended, Andrew went straight home, or rather to the luxurious penthouse he called home. The contrast between that apartment and the tiny studio Jack Price supposedly rented was striking. He tossed his keys on the table and walked over to the window, staring out at the city lights. Harper's words echoed in his mind, "I don't need a hero. I just need honesty." Andrew picked up his phone and dialed David's number. Mr. Hoffman, his assistant, answered. "David, I need you to take care of something for me quietly." "Of course, what do you need?" Andrew hesitated, what he was about to do when against everything Harper had said. But he couldn't just sit back and watch her suffer. "I want you to handle a situation at the Magnolia Bistro," he began. "There's an employee there named Harper Wells who's being falsely accused of using restaurant supplies. I need you to prove that she paid for everything herself." "Understood. How would you like me to do that?" "Talk to the suppliers, find out what the restaurant purchased in the last few weeks and compare it to what Harper bought on her own. If necessary, pay the suppliers to speak on her behalf." There was a pause. "Sir, that would be bribery," Andrew finished. "I know, but it's for the right reason. If you're sure I am, make it happen, David, and no one can know it was me." "Understood." Andrew hung up and looked out at the city again. He was helping Harper, yes, but in the wrong way, the dishonest way, exactly the kind of things she hated. He let himself fall onto the couch, running his hands through his hair. He had to tell her the truth. But how? How do you explain that you spent weeks lying, pretending to be someone else, sneaking into her life with a false identity? What if she hated him for it? Andrew thought about the kiss they'd shared, the way Harper looked at him with trust and warmth. If he told her now, he might lose all of it. But if he didn't, he'd be living a lie. He stayed there all night, torn between two impossible choices. The next day, Andrew arrived at the restaurant, trying to act normal. Harper greeted him with a tired but genuine smile. "Morning, walking disaster." "Morning," he smiled back. "Did you sleep well?" "Not really. I stayed up thinking about how to prove Rick is lying." She lowered her voice. "But I think I have a plan." "What kind of plan?" Before she could answer, Rick entered the dining room with a strange look on his face. He stared directly at Andrew, his eyes narrowed. "Jack Price," he said, walking over. "Can I talk to you in private?" Andrew's stomach dropped. "Sure." They walked into Rick's office and he closed the door behind them. The manager walked over to his desk and picked up a few papers. "You know, Jack, something funny happened earlier this morning." Rick began flipping through the documents. "I called one of our suppliers to double-check an order and guess what he told me? Someone's been asking questions, very specific questions about ingredients and dates." Andrew kept a neutral expression. "And what does that have to do with me?" "I'm not sure yet," Rick said, leaning over the desk, "but it struck me as odd and it got me thinking. Who exactly are you, Jack Price?" "I'm just a waiter." "Really?" Rick smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Because to me, you don't seem like an ordinary waiter. You've got a certain air about you, too polite, too calm. You seem like someone used to giving orders, not taking them." Andrew felt his heart pick up. "You're imagining things." "Maybe," Rick said, folding his arms, "or maybe not. So I think I'll do a little digging on you, Jack, find out who you really are, and if I find out you're hiding something, well, that'll be interesting." Andrew held his gaze, showing no fear. "Be my guest." "Oh, I will," Rick said, smiling. Andrew left the office with the weight of Rick's threat pressing on his shoulders. Rick was suspicious, and if he found out the truth before Andrew had a chance to tell Harper, everything would fall apart. 2 days later, Andrew woke up with his stomach in knots, not because of Rick, because of Harper. It was the day of the cooking competition, and he knew how much it meant to her. He dressed casually, jeans, plain t-shirt, a cap, and left the house early. The event was being held at the Charleston Convention Center, a large venue downtown. By the time he arrived, a crowd was already forming. Andrew bought a ticket and blended into the audience, looking for a spot where he could watch without being noticed. He didn't want Harper to get nervous if she saw him. The hall was set up with individual cooking stations, each equipped with stoves, utensils, and ingredients. There were about 15 competitors, each one wearing a mix of confidence and sheer panic. Then he saw her. Harper was at station number 7, tying on a white apron and checking her ingredients. Even from a distance, Andrew could see the tension in her shoulders. "Ladies and gentlemen," announced the host, a tall man in a sharp suit. "Welcome to the 10th annual Charleston Cooking Contest. Today, our talented amateur chefs will have 2 hours to create a dish that represents the heart and soul of the American South." The audience applauded. Andrew clapped along, his eyes fixed on Harper. "And begin." The room erupted into action. Pots clanged, knives chopped, spices flew. Andrew watched, captivated. As Harper moved with focus and speed, she looked completely in her element, like she was born to do this. Beside him, a woman whispered to her husband, "Look at the one at station 7. She looks confident, very confident." The husband replied, "I bet she wins." Andrew smiled. They didn't even know the half of it. As time went on, some competitors started to fall apart. One man spilled an entire pot of sauce. A woman burned her chicken. Another forgot to turn on the oven. But Harper stayed in control. She worked with a mix of focus and joy. Every now and then she cracked a joke with the person next to her or danced a little while stirring something on the stove. It was impossible not to smile watching her. With 30 minutes left, the judges began making their rounds. There were 3 of them, a well-known ton chef, a food critic, and a culinary school instructor. When they reached Harper's station, she greeted them with a bright smile. "How's it going here?" asked the chef. "Great," Harper replied, seasoning something in the pan. "I'm making a special stew. I call it Southern Magnolia." "Magnolia," the critic repeated with interest. "Is there a story behind that?" "Yes, it's a tribute to the place where I work, the Magnolia Bistro," Harper explained, "and also because the magnolia represents dignity and strength. Kind of like the people who work hard every day and still find reasons to smile." Andrew felt a lump rise in his throat. She was talking about herself. The judges looked impressed and moved on. When the timer finally went off, all the contestants stepped back from their stations. Harper wiped her hands on her apron and looked down at her dish with pride. "Time for judging," the host announced one by one. The judges tasted each dish, taking notes and making comments. Some received praise, others harsh critiques. When they reached Harper's station, Andrew held his breath. The chef took a spoonful, tasted it, and closed her eyes. "Wow, this is exceptional," said the critic. "The seasoning is perfectly balanced," the culinary instructor nodded, "and there's something more here. It's not just technique. This dish has soul." Harper blushed, smiling. "Thank you. My grandma used to say food without love is just fuel, so I made sure there's plenty of love in that bowl." The judges laughed, clearly charmed not just by the food but by her personality too. When they finished tasting all the dishes, the judges gathered to deliberate. The tension in the room was thick. Andrew tapped his fingers nervously on his knee. Finally the host returned to the stage, holding a golden envelope. "Ladies and gentlemen, here are the results." The crowd went science in 3rd place. He opened the envelope. James Mitchell with his classic fried chicken applause. James walked up to the stage to receive his trophy and a check in 2nd place. The host paused dramatically. Harper Wells with her Southern Magnolia. Andrew jumped from his seat, clapping and cheering. A few people turned to look at him, curious, but he didn't care. Harper walked up to the stage, her eyes shining. She accepted the trophy, a sliver, spoon engraved with her name and the check. When the host asked her to say a few words, Harper stepped up to the microphone. "Well, I wasn't expecting to win anything. So this is already amazing." She began, making the audience laugh. "I want to thank my grandma, who taught me that cooking is about making people happy. And I also want to thank someone special who helped me not give up when I wanted to." She looked out at the audience searching. "Jack, if you're out there, thank you." Andrew felt his eyes sting. "And lastly," Harper went on, "I want to say this, it doesn't matter where you are in life right now. If you have a dream, go after it. Even if it's just little by little, because every step counts." The audience burst into applause. Harper stepped off the stage, holding her trophy like it was the most precious thing in the world. Andrew moved through the crowd, trying to get to her. When he finally found her, Harper was packing up her things. "Harper," she turned and saw him. Her face lit up. Jack, you came. Of course I did. He pulled her into a tight hug. You were incredible. More than incredible. Harper laughed, hugging him back. I can't believe I won second place. Me, you should have taken first. Oh stop. The winning dish was really good. She stepped back, showing him the check. But look at this, it's enough for my mom's treatment. Andrew smiled, truly happy for her. I knew you could do it. Harper looked at him, her expression softened him. You believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself, because I see you, Harper, and you're extraordinary. Something shifted in the air between them. Harper stepped closer, placing a hand gently on his face. You're kind of amazing too, Jack Price. And then she kissed him. This time it wasn't out of surprise or impulse, it was intentional, full of meaning. Andrew wrapped his arms around her, forgetting completely where they were when they pulled apart. Both were smiling like teenagers, so Andrew began, suddenly nervous. I wanted to ask you something. Go ahead, do you want to? Would you like? He took a deep breath. Harper Wells. Will you be my girlfriend? Harper blinked, surprised, then she burst out laughing. You're asking me out in the middle of a cooking contest. Yeah, Andrew laughed too. Terrible timing. Perfect timing. She kissed him again, quick and sweet, and yes, 1,000 times. Yes, Andrew spun her in the air, making her laugh when he set her down. Both of them were glowing. Come on, let's celebrate, Harper said, picking up her trophy. I need ice cream or pizza or both. Both sounds perfect. They started walking toward the exit, fingers intertwined when a voice called out behind them. Excuse me, excuse me. Andrew turned and saw a man in a suit rushing over, a camera hanging from his neck, a journalist. Andrew's heart sank. Sorry to bother you, the man said, out of breath, but I know you. You're Andrew Hoffman, the billionaire owner of Hoffman Foods. The world seemed to stop. Andrew felt Harper stiffened beside him. Slowly she let go of his hand. Andrew began. But he didn't know what to say. Wait, it is you. The reporter looked thrilled. What a surprise seeing you here. Are you scouting new talent for your restaurants? Can I ask a few questions? Andrew barely heard him. His eyes were on Harper. She was looking at him with an expression he'd never seen before. It wasn't anger. It was worse. It was betrayal. Harper, he reached out to her, but she stepped back, hugging the trophy to her chest. I have to go, Harper. Wait, let me explain. No. Her voice was calm but trembling. Not now. She turned her back and walked quickly toward the exit. Andrew took a step forward, but the reporter blocked his way. Mr. Hoffman, just a quick photo. Andrew ignored him completely and ran after Harper, but when he got to the door, she was already gone. Lost in the crowd, he stood there, frozen on the sidewalk, heart shattered. She had found out, and by the way she looked at him, Andrew knew he had lost the only thing that really mattered. The next morning, Andrew arrived at the Magnolia Bistro with a knot in his stomach. He had tried calling Harper all night, but she hadn't picked up. He sent messages, none answered. Now all he could do was hope she'd show up for work. When he walked into the staff room, Harper was already there. But she wasn't getting ready for her shift. She was emptying out her locker. Harper, Andrew said, his voice lower than he meant it to be. She froze for a second but didn't turn around. She kept putting her things into a cardboard box. Please just hear me. He stepped forward. I can explain. Harper finally turned, and the look on her face made Andrew stop in his tracks. There were no tears, just a cold, controlled anger. Explain, she repeated, her voice sharp. Explain what exactly? That you lied to me the whole time, that you pretended to be someone else, that you made me look like a fool. It wasn't like that, wasn't it? Harper let out a bitter laugh. Then tell me. Andrew Hoffman, what was it? Hearing his real name from her lips laced with so much venom, hurt more than he expected. I wasn't trying to deceive you, Andrew began. I needed to understand what was happening at the restaurant. The numbers didn't add up, people were quitting, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong from a distance. So you decided to play. Poor Harper crossed her arms, decided to go undercover like it was some kind of spy movie. It wasn't about playing. It was about seeing the truth. The truth. Harper stepped closer. You want the truth, Andrew. You're a billionaire who was so afraid to get his hands dirty that you chose to lie to everyone here, including me. Harper, please, you knew how much honesty means to me. her voice finally trembled. "I told you things, I trusted you. And the whole time you were lying." "I didn't lie about how I feel," Andrew said quickly. "Everything I felt for you was real." "How can I believe that?" Harper looked at him. Sadness behind her anger. "How can I trust anything you say now?" Andrew opened his mouth, but no words came because she was right. He had broken her trust in the worst way. Harper closed the box and picked it up. "I quit." "What? No, I can't work here anymore," she said, heading to the door. "Not when the owner is someone who used me as a social experiment." "I didn't use you." "Harper, wait." But she didn't stop. She walked right past him and out of the staff room, leaving Andrew alone with the crushing weight of guilt on his chest. The news of Harper's resignation spread through the restaurant like wildfire. Andrew could hear the whispers, see the confused looks being exchanged. Rick, of course, didn't waste the opportunity. "You know what he said loud enough for everyone to hear during the afternoon shift. I always knew Harper was trouble. Now we find out she was stealing ingredients for contests. That's why she quit before we could fire her." Andrew, standing on the other side of the dining area, dropped the train in his hands and walked straight toward Rick. "That's not true and you know it." Rick smirked. "Oh really? And how would you know that, Jack? Or should I say Mr. Hoffman?" The room felt completely solid. Andrew felt all eyes turned to him. The staff stared, a mix of shock and confusion on their faces. Rick continued, clearly enjoying himself. "That's right, everyone. Our clumsy little waiter friend here is actually the owner of this place. He's been sneaking around in disguise, spying on us." One of the waitresses, Linda, whispered. "Is that true?" Andrew took a deep breath. "It's true, I'm Andrew Hoffman. And yes, I came here in disguise." The murmurs grew louder. Some of the staff looked defended, others just puzzled. "But I wasn't playing games," Andrew said firmly. "I was trying to find out why this restaurant, which should be thriving, was falling apart. And I found the answer." He pointed straight at Rick. "Here's the reason." Rick laughed. "Of course, blame me, not the absent owner who never shows up to see how things really work." "You're right." Andrew admitted. "I should have come sooner. But now I'm here and I've seen it all. I saw you humiliate staff, make false accusations, and create a toxic environment." "Proof?" Rick challenged. "You got any proof?" "I do." Andrew pulled a small notebook from his pocket. 3 weeks of notes, dates, times, names of the people you mistreated, witnesses. Rick paled slightly but tried to keep us cool. "No one's going to believe you. You're a liar." "He's not," said a quiet voice. Everyone turned. It was Elena, the pregnant cook, same one Rick had mistreated weeks ago. "I saw everything he said, and I can confirm it." "So did I," said Linda. "Rick is awful to everyone here." Other employees began to chime in, sharing their own stories. Rick looked around, realizing he was losing control. "This is ridiculous," he snapped. "You can't believe this imposter." "The only imposter here is you," Andrew said calmly. "You pretended to be a competent manager when you were actually tearing this place apart from the inside." Rick looked around, desperate. Then did the only thing he knew how to do, attack. "You want the truth?" he shouted. "Harper was stealing. She admitted it to me. And this billionaire over here protected her because, well, you know why." "Watch what you say," Andrew warned, his voice dangerously low. "She got to him. She seduced the boss to get what she wanted." Rick was unraveling now, and when she got caught, she ran. Andrew clenched his fists. He wanted to punch Rick, he wanted to scream. But he knew that would only make things worse. Instead, he took a deep breath. "Tomorrow morning, I'm holding a meeting with all staff. I'll present evidence of everything that's happened here, and I'll make public the kind of management you've all had to endure." He looked Rick straight in the eye. "And you're fired. Pack your things." "You can't fire me. I'm the owner." "I can." Andrew turned to the staff. "You can all go home early today, full pay. We'll talk tomorrow about the future of this place." The employees hesitated, then slowly began to leave. Rick stood in the middle of the dining room, red with anger and humiliation. "You'll regret this," he spat. "I'll tell the whole city what you did. I'll ruin your reputation." "Do what you want," Andrew said, exhausted. "I'll tell the truth first." Rick stormed out. Slamming the door behind him, Andrew stood alone in the empty restaurant, surrounded by tables and chairs, feeling the full weight of everything that had happened. He had lost Harper. He had exposed his lie, he had created a mess, but for the first time he was ready to face the consequences. He picked up the phone and called David. David, I need you to organize a press conference tomorrow morning. A press conference? David sounded surprised. About everything? Andrew looked around the restaurant. It's time to tell the truth. The next morning, Andrew woke to the sound of his phone ringing non-stop. It was 6 a.m. He answered with a sleepy voice. Mr. Hoffman. It was David, and he sounded agitated. Have you seen the news? What news? Andrew rubbed his eyes. The story leaked. It's everywhere. Andrew jumped out of bed and turned on the TV. The local news was showing a photo of him, his official portrait. In a suit next to a grainy picture someone had taken of him working Magnolia Bistro. The headline read "Millionaire goes undercover in his own restaurant." Oh no, Andrew muttered. The anchor continued. Andrew Hoffman, billionaire and owner of the Hoffman Foods Group, spent weeks disguised as a waiter in one of his own establishments. Reactions are mixed. Some call it brilliant. Others say it was manipulative and disrespectful to the staff. The segment showed street interviews. The woman said, "I think it's amazing. He wanted to really understand his business." A man said, "It's ridiculous. The staff must have felt watched." Andrew turned off the TV and called David back. "How did this get out, Rick?" "He sold the story to the media last night. Now he's doing interviews claiming you created a toxic, suspicious work environment." Of course it was him. Andrew pinched the bridge of his nose. "Is the press conference still on?" "Yes, sir. In 3 hours. Good. And David, get Rick ROS termination documents ready. I want everything official. No loopholes. They're already done." Andrew hung up and got ready this time. No jeans and t-shirt. He put on a sharp suit, tie, polished shoes. If he was going to face the scandal, he'd do it as himself. When he arrived at Magnolia Bistro, reporters were already waiting outside. Cameras flashed the moment he stepped out of the car. "Mr. Hoffman, is it true you went undercover? Why did you hide your identity? Did the staff know?" Andrew didn't answer. He just walked confidently to the entrance, ignoring the questions. David was waiting inside, along with a lawyer, Rick ROS, in the office. David said he refuses to leave. "Let's take care of it now." The three of them headed to the office. Rick was sitting in the chair like he still owned the place, feet up on the desk. "Oh, the great billionaire has arrived," Rick said sarcastically. "Come to lecture me." Andrew walked into the room and placed a folder on the table. "I came to make your dismissal official. You can't fire me without cause. I have cause." Andrew opened the folder, revealing documents, 3 weeks worth of detailed records of your misconduct. Employee humiliations, false accusations, creating a hostile work environment, all documented with dates and witnesses. Rick turned pale. "You were spying on me. I was observing, and you showed exactly what I suspected." Andrew pushed the papers forward. "Sign here. You're fired. And no, this isn't a joke." Rick looked at the documents, then at the lawyer, then back at Andrew. "You won't get away with this. I'll sue." "Go ahead," said the lawyer calmly. "We have enough evidence to counter-sue for harassment in creating a toxic workplace." Rick realized he was cornered, with hands shaking in anger. He picked up the pen and signed the papers. "Have security. Escort him out," Andrew told David. 2 security guards walked in and escorted Rick to the door. He kept complaining loudly, but no one paid attention. When the door closed, Andrew let out the breath he'd been holding. One problem solved. "You still have the press conference." David reminded him. "I know, let's go." The press conference was held in the main dining room of the restaurant. At least 20 journalists were present, along with TV cameras and photographers. Andrew stepped up onto a small makeshift platform and adjusted the microphone. "Good morning. Thank you for coming. I'll make a statement and then take questions." He took a deep breath. "My name is Andrew Hoffman, and yes, I spent the last few weeks working undercover as a waiter in my own restaurant. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was necessary." The cameras clicked rapidly. This restaurant was struggling. The numbers didn't add up, employees were leaving, and I couldn't figure out why just by looking at reports, so I decided to see for myself, and what I found was a toxic management, an abusive manager, and amazing employees being held back. Yes, I lied about who I was, and I understand that some employees feel betrayed, but I never intended to spy or punish anyone. I wanted to understand, and now that I do, I plan to fix it. A reporter raised a hand. What about the accusations that one of your employees was stealing? Completely false, Andrew answered firmly. Those accusations were made up by former manager Rick Thompson as retaliation. The employee in question, Harper Wells, is talented, honest and was treated unfairly. I'm working to fully clear her name. Is she coming back to work here? Andrew hesitated. That's up to her. But the door is open. More questions followed about the company, the other restaurants and the future of Magnolia. Andrew answered them all honestly. When the press conference finally ended, he was exhausted. But he knew he had done the right thing. The next day, Andrew stood in front of Harper's apartment building. He had the address because David had gotten it from the employee records, something Andrew knew was a little invasive. But he was desperate. He took a deep breath and rang the buzzer for apartment 3B. There was a long pause. Then Harper's voice came through the intercom. Who is it? It's me, Andrew. Another pause. What do you want? Just 5 minutes, please. If after that you still want me to leave, I will. Another silence. Then the door buzzed open. Andrew walked up the stairs to the 3rd floor. Harper was waiting at the door, arms crossed. She wore jeans and a simple t-shirt, her hair pulled back into a messy ponytail. 5 minutes, she said, not moving from the doorway. Can I come in? No, Andrew sighed. Fair enough, all right. I came to say I'm sorry truly for the way things happened. You already said that, I know, but I want you to understand why I did it. Andrew chose his words carefully. When I bought Magnolia, all I saw were numbers on a spreadsheet, profit loss, efficiency. But numbers don't tell stories. They don't show people being mistreated or talent being wasted. Harper kept looking at him, her expression unreadable. So I decided to see for myself, and I found you. Andrew stepped a little closer. You showed me that behind every number is a real person with dreams, with struggles, with value, and I should have told you the truth. I should have trusted you, but you didn't, Harper said. Her voice calm but firm. I didn't trust you, and that was my mistake, Andrew admitted, but everything I felt for you was real, Harper. Every conversation, every laugh, every moment. I wasn't pretending. Harper looked away. How can I be sure of that? You can't, Andrew said honestly. You can only decide if you're willing to give me a chance to prove it. There was a long silence. Then Harper sighed. Andrew, I believe you felt something real. I felt it too. But it doesn't change the fact that you lied, and lies break trust. I know, and without trust there's no way forward. She finally looked at him, eyes filled with tears. I need time. Andrew felt his chest tighten, but nodded. Take all the time you need, and it's not just about us, Harper added, it's about me. I need to figure out who I am outside that restaurant, outside of all of this. I understand. Andrew reached into his coat and pulled out an envelope. But before you go, I want to give you this. Harper took the envelope cautiously. She opened it and found a formal letter inside. It's a job offer, Andrew explained. Executive chef at Magnolia Bistro, competitive salary, full benefits and complete creative control over the menu. Harper read the letter, eyes wide. Andrew, you don't have to accept it now. You don't ever have to accept it. But I want you to know the offer is real because you deserve it. Not because of me, but because you're incredibly talented. Harper folded the letter slowly. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, Andrew said, stepping back. Just think about, okay. She nodded, holding the letter close to her chest. And Harper, Andrew said before turning, I'm sorry for everything. I know, she said softly. Andrew walked down the steps, each one heavier than the last. When he reached his car, he looked up and saw Harper still standing in the doorway, watching him. He raised a hand. She didn't wave back. She just quietly closed the door. 2 days later, Andrew heard from David that Harper had left town. She had gone to her mother's city to help with her treatment, using the prize money from the competition. She left without looking back, and Andrew stayed in Charleston alone, waiting for a second chance that might never come. The following weeks were the hardest of Andrew's life. He hired a new manager for Magnolia Bistro, someone experienced, fair, respectful. He raised staff wages. He renovated the kitchen, updated the menu. On paper, everything was running smoothly, but the restaurant had lost its soul. Andrew felt it every time he walked in. The staff was polite, efficient, professional. But the energy was gone, the spark that Harper brought was missing. No one laughed loudly in the kitchen anymore, no one joked with customers, everything was proper but cold. One evening Andrew sat alone at a corner table, staring at the empty dining room, after closing. David walked over with a few reports. "Numbers are improving, Mr. Hoffman," he said. "Magnolia is finally back in the black." "That's good," Andrew replied flatly. David hesitated. "You don't sound happy about that." "It's just," Andrew sighed. "What's the point of success if there's no one to share it with?" David didn't reply. He just placed a hand on his boss's shoulder and quietly stepped away. Andrew ran his hands over his face. He had called Harper several times in the early weeks. But she never answered, sent messages that went unanswered. Eventually he stopped trying. If she needed space, he'd give it to her, even if it tore him up inside. 2 months passed. Andrew learned to live with the circulation. He threw himself into work, expanding the business, opening new restaurants. Always there was a space in his heart that belonged to Harper. Then one Tuesday afternoon, everything changed. Andrew was walking through downtown Charleston, distracted by his phone when he caught a familiar scent, seasoned chicken, southern spices, something warm and comforting. He looked up and froze. Parked on the corner was a food truck, painted light blue and white. The sign across the top read in cheerful, colorful letters, "Harper's Heart." Andrew's heart skipped a beat. There was a line of at least 10 people waiting to be served, and there at the window of the truck was her Harper. She wore a red apron, her hair tied up in a messy bun. Smiling as she handed a plate to a customer, even from a distance, Andrew could tell she looked happy, truly happy. He stepped closer, staying behind a group of people to watch. The menu was written on a chalkboard nearby. Disaster of the day, fried chicken that almost didn't make it, but turned out just right. Restart soup because everyone deserves a second chance. Hope pie sweet enough to make you believe again. Andrew smiled. It was so Harper. Next, Harper called and a woman stepped up. "I'll have the disaster of the day," the customer said, laughing. "That name is hilarious. It's based on personal experience." Harper replied with a playful smile. "Once I tried to make fried chicken and almost burned down a kitchen, but I learned from my mistakes, so now it's perfect or close." The customer laughed. "You're funny. First time I've seen someone sell food with self-deprecating humor. It's my marketing strategy, brutal honesty with a dash of humor." Harper packed up the order. "Here you go. If you don't like it, feel free to complain. I love constructive criticism or destructive. Doesn't matter." The woman took her food, still laughing, and walked away. Andrew watched as Harper served 3 more customers, each interaction full of jokes and warmth. She turned a simple food sale into something memorable. Finally the line got shorter. Andrew took a deep breath and walked up. When he reached the window, Harper had her back turned, organizing something. "Go ahead with your order," she called without looking. "One disaster of the day, please," Andrew said. Harper froze, slowly. She turned around. Their eyes met for a long moment. Neither said a word. "Hi," Andrew finally said. "Hi." Harper replied softly. "So you're back." "I'm back." She crossed her arms. But there was no anger in her expression, just caution. "Been back for 2 weeks. Why didn't you tell me?" Harper shrugged. "Figured you were busy being a billionaire." Andrew gave a sad smile. "Never too busy for you." She looked away. "Andrew, I'm sorry." He raised his hands. "I'm not here to pressure you, just it's good to see you." Harper studied him for a moment, then sighed. "So do you want the disaster of the day or not?" "I do." She prepared the meal in science, packed it and handed it to him. $10. Andrew paid and took the food. "Can I eat here?" Harper pointed to a small plastic table next to the food truck. "Go ahead." He sat down and opened the box. The chicken was perfectly golden, crispy on the outside, juicy inside. There was mashed potatoes, sauteed collard greens, and a sauce that smelled amazing. Andrew took the first bite and closed his eyes. It was incredible. "Well," Harper appeared at the window, pretending not to care. "Gonna complain or compliment?" "Harper, this is outstanding." She smiled, trying to hide her pride. "Thanks, seriously, it's better than anything we served at Magnolia." "Don't exaggerate." "I'm not exaggerating," Andrew said, looking up at her. "You're amazing. And this food truck is amazing. You're doing exactly what you always dreamed of." Harper leaned on the window. "Yeah. It's not a full restaurant yet, but it's a start. It's more than a start, it's a dream coming true." They were quiet for a moment, just looking at each other. "How's your mom?" Andrew asked. "Better, much better." Harper smiled genuinely. "The treatment worked, she's recovering well." "I'm glad to hear that." "Thanks." She paused. "And you, how's Magnolia running? Making money?" Andrew shrugged. "But it's not the same without you." Harper looked away. "Andrew, I know you need time." He finished the meal and stood up. "I just wanted you to know I admire you for having the courage to start over and chase your dream on your own." Harper looked at him, surprised. "You didn't need me. You didn't need my help or my money." Andrew smiled. "You did this yourself, and that's incredible." Before Harper could respond, a middle-aged man walked over. He wore glasses and carried a notebook. "Excuse me," he said, "are you Harper Wells?" Harper blinked. "Yes, who's asking?" "Thomas Green, food critic for Charleston Food magazine." He extended a hand. "I just tried your food and I have to say it's exceptional. Mind if I ask you a few questions for an article?" Harper's eyes widened. "An article about me, about you and your food truck?" Thomas smiled. "It's been a while since I've seen this much passion and authenticity in a kitchen. And those dish names, brilliant." Harper glanced at Andrew, who was smiling proudly. Then she turned back to Thomas. "Sure, ask anything you'd like." Andrew took a step back to give them space. "I'll let you talk." "Andrew, wait." Harper called out. He stopped. "Thank you," she said softly, "for showing up for everything." He smiled always as he walked back toward his car. Andrew looked over his shoulder one last time. Harper was chatting with the critic, eyes lit up with excitement, and for the first time in 2 months Andrew felt something other than circulation. He felt hope. The following week the article was published. The headline read, "The Waitress Who Won Over Charleston: How Harper Wells Turned Dreams into Reality." The article was long, detailed and full of praise. Thomas didn't just talk about the amazing food, he described Harper's captivating personality, her unique sense of humor, and her story of perseverance. The food truck became famous overnight, and Andrew, reading the article in his office, smiled. Harper was shining finally. 3 days after the article was published, Andrew sat at his desk looking at the magazine clipping for the 10th time. The photo of Harper smiling next to the food truck was burned into his mind. He needed to see her again, but this time he wanted to do it differently. He picked up the phone and called David. "I need a strange favor." "I'm used to your strange favor, sir," David replied with a hint of humor. "What's the plan this time?" "I need simple clothes, worn-out jeans, a faded t-shirt, old cap. The more ordinary the better." Here was a pause. "You're going undercover again?" "Yes, but this time it's different." Andrew smiled. "This time it's for the right reason." The next morning Andrew stood a block away from Harper's food truck. He was wearing ripped jeans, a faded gray t-shirt with an old band logo, and a Braves cap pulled low over his eyes. Dark sunglasses completed the disguise. He took a deep breath and walked toward the truck. As expected, there was a line. The article had tripled Harper's customers. Andrew took his place at the end, waiting patiently. As he waited, he watched Harper work. She moved with confidence and joy, chatting with each customer like they were old friends. Her laughter was contagious, and people walked away not just with food, but with smiles on their faces. Next, Harper called. Andrew stepped forward, keeping his head down. "Good morning," Harper said cheerfully. "First time here?" "Yeah." Andrew lowered his voice slightly, making it sound rougher. "Heard great things." "Oh, must be because of that article." She laughed. "I still can't believe someone wrote about me anyway. What'll it be?" Andrew looked at the menu. The restart soup. Harper paused, something shifting in her expression. "Really, really?" He looked up just enough for her to see under the cap. Harper's eyes widened. "Andrew," he took off the sunglasses and smiled sheepishly. "Hi, you're in disguise again." She wasn't sure if she should laugh or be annoyed. "Technically, yes," Andrew admitted, "but only because I wanted to see if you'd recognize me, and also because, well, I wanted to order the restart soup. It felt right." Harper crossed her arms, but a small smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. "Are you seriously starting over with another disguise this time?" "No lies," Andrew said firmly. "I just came because I wanted a fresh start, a real one. No secrets, no games, just honesty. People in the line behind him started whispering, recognizing who he was, but Andrew didn't care. Andrew Harper began. Wait, let me say this. He turned to the people in line. Folks, can you give me a minute? I promise I'll be quick and lunch is on me. There were cheers and some laughter. Andrew turned back to Harper. Harper Wells, he began loud enough for everyone to hear. You are the most amazing person I've ever met. And I messed it all up because I was too afraid to be honest. I spent weeks pretending to be someone else because I was scared to face the truth about my own mistakes as a businessman. Harper watched him, her eyes shining. But you taught me that success means nothing if you don't treat people with respect. That money can't buy character, and that honesty is worth more than any profit. He stepped closer. I've learned more from you in these 2 months than in all my years running a company. Someone in line shouted, Go for it, man. Andrew smiled, but kept his eyes on Harper. And I know I ruined everything. I know I hurt you, but if you give me a chance, just one more chance, I promise to be the man you deserve. No costumes, no lies, just me. Harper wiped away a tear running down her cheek. You're ridiculous, you know that. I know you show up here in another disguise, make a public speech by everyone's food. Yeah, kind of dramatic, I know, kind of. Harper laughed to her tears. This is straight out of a romance movie. So Andrew paused. Is that a yes? Harper looked at him for a long moment, then she sighed. Andrew Hoffman, you are the most complicated, confusing, and frustratingly sweet man I've ever met. Is that a compliment? I'm still deciding. She leaned out through the food truck window. But yes, I forgive you. Andrew's heart jumped. Really, but with one condition. Anything. Harper pointed at him. If you want to be in my life, you show up wearing an apron. Not a suit. I want the Andrew who drops pans and messes up measurements, not the billionaire stuck in offices. Andrew smiled, his expression softening. Deal. Can I have an apron now? Harper laughed. Wait, what you said? I need to come with an apron. He walked around the food truck and stepped in through the side door. So put me to work, Andrew. I've got a huge line. Perfect, I'll help. He grabbed an apron hanging nearby and slipped it on. What do I do first? Harper shook her head but was smiling. You're impossible, but you love me. I'm still deciding about that, too. Andrew stepped closer, close enough to feel her warmth. Let me help you decide. And then he kissed her. It was a soft kiss, full of promises and rush starts. Harper kissed him back, arms wrapped around his neck. Completely forgetting about the line of waiting customers outside, the crowd erupted in cheers and applause when they finally pulled apart. They were both grinning like teenagers. All right, I've decided. Harper said, I definitely love you, thank God. Andrew rested his forehead on hers. Because I love you too madly. Really. Since when? Since he told me I looked tired and needed better coffee. He laughed. I think I fell for you right then and there. Harper laughed and gave him another quick kiss. You're ridiculous. You're ridiculous guy, my ridiculous guy. She agreed. A customer shouted from the window. Hey, not that we're not enjoying this adorable moment, but can we order some food? Harper and Andrew pulled apart, laughing. All right, Harper called back. Sorry, show's over. Actually, Andrew picked up a spoon and held it like a microphone. I'd like to announce that all meals today are on the house, courtesy of Andrew Hoffman. Consider it a celebration. The crowd cheered again. Harper playfully smacked his arm. You can't just offer free food without asking me first. I can. I'm a science investor now. You're what? Andrew smiled. We'll talk about that later. For now, teach me how not to burn the soup. Harper rolled her eyes, still smiling. You're going to be a disaster in my kitchen. Probably. He pulled her in for one more quick kiss. But it'll be fun. And as they worked side by side, serving customers, laughing at mistakes and sharing loving glances, they both knew this time it was real. No disguises, no lies, just love and lots of delicious food. 6 months later, Andrew stood in front of the Magnolia Bistro. Watching the final touches for the big reopening, the restaurant had been completely transformed. The once dull and serious walls were now painted warm shades of cream, and soft green plants filled the space, bringing it to life. But the most eye-catching part, the funny signs hung all over the walls. One read warning temperamental chef, but the food's worth it. Another didn't like it, blame the sous chef, loved it. Thank the chef and his personal favorite hanging right above the kitchen entrance. We cook with love and a little chaos. You're grinning like a fool, said a voice behind him. Andrew turned to see Harper wearing a spotless white apron, her hair in an elegant but messy bun. She looked beautiful. I'm admiring the work of the new executive chef and co-owner, he said, pulling her into a hug. Cosmos, Harper repeated, still getting used to the title. It still feels surreal. You deserve it. Andrew kissed the top of her head. Every dollar invested, every minute of planning. This is yours. Harper looked around, eyes sparkling. Ours. This is ours. Andrew, he smiled. Over the past month they had worked side by side, rebuilding Magnolia. Andrew had made Harper a full partner, not out of guilt or pity, but because she earned it. She brought the creative vision, the bold flavors, the soul the restaurant needed. He took care of the finances and operations together. They were unstoppable. Is the kitchen crew ready? Andrew asked, ready and terrified. Harper laughed, but the good kind of terrified, the excited kind. And the menu, oh, you're going to love it. She tugged his hand. Come take a look. They walked to the entrance where the new menu was displayed on a sleek board. Andrew read the dish names and burst out laughing. Forgiveness chicken, because everyone deserves a second chance. Reconciliation risotto, creamy the way it always should have been. Truth pie, sweet but honest. Fresh start ste grilled to perfection. Finally Harper, this is brilliant, Andrew said. I know, she said with a playful smile, and before you ask, yes, I added the story of each dish to the menu. Customers will know that the forgiveness chicken is a tribute to our mistakes. And the reconciliation risotto stands for, when we made things right again. Andrew wrapped his arms around her. You turned our story into culinary art. Exactly. Harper rested her head on his chest. And if people are going to talk about us anyway, they might as well eat well. While they do, they laughed together. Content in the embrace. Mr. Hoffman, Miss Wells, David called, rushing over with a clipboard. The first guests will be arriving in an hour. Everything has to be perfect. It is perfect, David. Harper assured him. Relax, you'll give yourself an ultra-rare. Small ultram is acceptable if the night's a success, he replied. Seriously. Andrew and Harper exchanged amused looks. An hour later the Magnolia Bistro was full. There were journalists, food critics, local business owners, and loyal customers who had followed the restaurant's journey. Even a few former employees from Rick ISS time were invited, now happily working elsewhere. Linda, the former waitress, came over and gave Harper a big hug. Look at you, executive chef, look at us. Harper corrected her. You're managing that amazing Italian. Thanks to you for recommending me. Linda smiled. You've changed a lot around here. Harper, we changed it. Harper looked toward Andrew, who was speaking with a group of investors together. The night was a complete success. Every dish came out perfectly. Customers laughed at the clever signs. The atmosphere was warm, welcoming. Just as Harper had always dreamed to green, the critic who had written the piece about the food truck tasted the reconciliation risotto and closed his eyes in delight. Harper, this is heavenly. Thank you, Thomas. She smiled this time. I didn't burn anything. This time. He laughed. I need to hear that story. Oh, ask Andrew. He has a whole book of my kitchen disasters. Andrew stepped beside her, and I'd keep every single one. As the evening went on, Andrew grew more and more nervous. He kept checking the pocket of his blazer, making sure the small item was still there. Harper noticed. You okay? You seem jittery. I'm great, he lied. Just excited. Excited you're sweating. It's the heat from the kitchen. Andrew, we're in the dining room with air conditioning. He laughed nervously. Right? Harper narrowed her eyes at him, but got distracted when a customer asked for a photo. As dinner wound down and dessert was being served, Andrew gave a subtle signal to David, who quietly approached the small band playing background music and whispered something. The music stopped. Andrew picked up a microphone. Good evening, everyone, he said, his voice echoing through the room. Thank you for being here tonight to celebrate the reopening of the Magnolia Bistro. Polite applause. Harper looked at him, puzzled. They hadn't planned any speeches. Tonight is special for many reasons, Andrew continued, but mostly because it marks a fresh start, a second chance. And I've learned that second chances are something to cherish. He walked to the center of the room. Where Harper stood near a table a year ago, I walked into this restaurant in disguise, trying to figure out what was wrong, and I found more than just answers. He looked directly at Harper. I found you. Harper's eyes widened. Andrew. What are you doing? Something I should have done months ago. He dropped to one knee. The room went silent. Phones came up. Capturing the moment, Harper covered her mouth with her hands. You're not. Andrew pulled a small blue velvet box from his pocket and opened it, revealing a delicate ring with a single diamond. Harper Wells, you taught me what truly matters. You showed me that success without heart is meaningless. That honesty is worth more than any fortune, and that real love embraces flaws and celebrates new beginnings. Tears were already streaming down Harper's cheeks. You made me laugh in my worst moments. Challenged me when I needed it, and loved me even when I didn't deserve it. Andrew smiled, and I want to spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy that love. He took a breath. Harper Wells, will you marry me this time? No disguises, no lies, just the two of us, exactly as we are. The entire room held its breath. Harper looked at him, at the ring, then back at him, and then, being entirely herself, she said, only if I get to pick the wedding menu. The room burst into laughter and applause. Andrew laughed too, and finally the tears started to fall. Deal, you get to choose everything, menu, decorations, music, all of it, and you promise never to dress up as a waiter again. I promise, unless you ask me to, and you promise not to burn my risotto. I promise to try. He smiled. So is that a yes? Harper got down on one knee in front of him, holding his face in her hands. It's a big giant. Yes, the size of your ego. When we first met, hey, Andrew protested, but he was laughing. It's true. Harper kissed him gently. But I love you just the same, even your ego. Andrew slipped the ring on her finger and she looked at it for a moment before pulling him in for a deeper kiss. The room burst into applause, cheers, and celebrations. When they pulled apart, they were both crying and smiling at the same time. I love you, Andrew whispered. I love you too, Harper said, wiping his tears. My favorite clumsy billionaire, your favorite sarcastic millionaire. Look at us already. Matching titles, she laughed. David showed up with champagne and everyone toasted the couple. The band started playing again, this time a lively tune, and people began to dance. Andrew pulled Harper to the center of the room and twirled her around. She laughed, letting go of all the stress and weight from the past few months. Who would have thought, she said, dancing a little awkwardly in his arms. The billionaire and the waitress, former waitress, Andrew corrected. Now you're an executive chef, a business owner and my future wife, and you're my partner, my best friend and a permanent kitchen disaster. Permanent. You burned water the other day. Andrew water. He laughed. Fair enough. They kept dancing, surrounded by friends, staff and customers, witnesses. Not just to the reopening of a restaurant, but to the beginning of a new life for two hearts that found each other in the most unexpected place there in the middle of the Magnolia Bistro dining room with the smell of good food in the air, laughter echoing through the walls and love filling every corner. Andrew and Harper knew they had found something rare. They had found home not in a place, but in each other, and this time for good. No disguises, just love, laughter and lots of well-seasoned chicken. What did you think of Andrew and Harper's story? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? Subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell so you don't miss any of our stories, and check out more emotional stories right here on the final screen. Alright. That's the end of today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. We'll keep updating with more exciting stories, and we look forward to seeing you next time.